We all have moments when anger feels like it's taking the wheel, speeding us toward words or actions we can't take back. And in those moments, we don't need more shame. We need more tools. Anger isn't bad. It's a signal. It's data. But when we don't understand it or we're afraid of it, it controls us instead of informing us. Let's start with something that seems simple, but is often the hardest part. Naming the emotion. I don't mean just saying I'm angry in a sarcastic tone while slamming a door. I mean really checking in with yourself, slowing down enough to notice what's happening in your body, in your mind, and calling that emotion what it is without judgment, without defensiveness, without shame. Why is this so hard? Because many of us grew up in environments where emotions, especially big, uncomfortable ones like anger, were seen as weaknesses or threats. Maybe we were told to calm down, stop overreacting, or go to your room when we expressed anger. So what did we learn? To shut it down, to push it inward, to pretend we were fine. And every time we swallowed that anger instead of acknowledging it, it didn't go away, it just got stored. And eventually it leaks out in sarcasm and passive aggression or an explosive outburst that feel completely out of proportion. But here's the truth, you can't heal what you don't name. You can't make better choices until you understand what you're feeling. When we name our emotion, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm afraid, we bring it into the light. And what lives in the light can't control us the same way it does in the dark. And this isn't just a self-help idea, it's grounded in neuroscience. When you label an emotion, you're literally shifting brain activity from the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for emotional reactivity, to the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning and decision-making. In other words, naming the emotion helps calm the nervous system. It helps bring us back into regulation so we can respond, not just react. Here's the part that takes practice. Sometimes anger isn't the first emotion that shows up. Sometimes it's the loudest, but it's covering something much softer, like disappointment or embarrassment, or fear of not being enough. And if you're brave enough to sit with that anger and ask, what else is here? You might uncover something tender. And that tenderness, that's where growth begins. Let me give you an example. Let's say your partner forgets something important to you, a birthday, a commitment, a promise. Your initial reaction is anger. You feel it rising in your chest, your voice gets sharp, your muscles tense. If you pause and name it, I'm angry, you've taken the first step. But then you go deeper. You ask yourself, what's underneath this anger? And maybe the real answer is, I feel unseen. I feel like I don't matter. Now you're not just reacting, you're revealing, you're uncovering the real wound. And when you can name that, you're not only helping yourself understand what's going on, you're also creating the possibility of real connection with the other person. You're giving them something true instead of just something loud. So next time you feel the heat of anger rising, ask yourself, can I pause just long enough to name that? Can I speak it out loud, even just to myself? Can I be brave enough to tell the truth about what I'm feeling, even if it's messy or uncomfortable? Because the minute you name it, you're no longer drowning in it, you're swimming through it with purpose. When anger shows up, it wants to take the front seat. It demands the mic, cranks the volume, and fuels this almost primal urge to fight, to defend, to shut down, or strike out. And let's be honest, sometimes it feels good. in the moment. Anger feels powerful. It makes us feel justified, in control, and even protected. But what if I told you that anger's greatest wisdom only reveals itself when you stop reacting and start getting curious? This is the invitation. Get curious, not furious. Curiosity is a pause. It's that sacred moment between the spark and the wildfire where we ask ourselves, what's really going on here? Why is this hitting me so hard? What's the story I'm telling myself right now? This shift from fury to curiosity isn't about suppressing or sugarcoating our emotions. It's about honoring them enough to understand them. Because here's the thing, anger's a messenger, not a monster. It shows up when something feels violated. Your values, your boundaries, your sense of worth. But instead of just acting out the emotion, what if you got quiet enough to listen to what it's actually trying to tell you? Let's say you're stuck in traffic after a long day and someone cuts you off. That flash of rage, it's not just about the car in front of you. It might be about how exhausted you are, how overwhelmed you feel, how invisible you felt all day long. That driver just happened to be the final straw. Curiosity helps you zoom out. It helps you look at the whole picture instead of reacting to just one corner of it. Getting curious also allows you to approach others differently. When someone lashes out, it's easy to fire back, but what if you took a breath and asked, what pain might they be carrying? That doesn't mean excusing toxic behavior. It means recognizing that everyone, including us, is carrying something we can't always see. Here's the truth we sometimes forget. Nobody is born angry. Anger is learned. It's protective. It often shows up when we feel unsafe, unworthy, or unseen. And if we're brave enough to get curious about it, we might just uncover something that's been asking for our attention for a long time. An unmet need, an old wound, or a belief that's no longer serving us. Curiosity doesn't mean you won't still be mad. You will, you're human. But instead of being consumed by that fury, you can hold it, examine it, and decide what to do with it on purpose. This takes courage, it takes practice. It means building a habit of self-inquiry instead of self-judgment, especially in moments when you want to throw blame like confetti. It means asking questions like, what am I really feeling? What does this remind me of? What would a wise version of me want to know right now? Curiosity is your anchor. It's your compass. It's what keeps you from getting swept away in the storm of reactivity. So the next time you feel your blood boiling, your fists clenching, your voice rising, pause and ask, what's this anger trying to protect? Ask, what part of me needs compassion right now? That's where the work begins. That's where the healing begins. Anger wants a reaction. Curiosity offers transformation. Want to continue with breathe before you speak next? There's this small moment, so easy to miss, between the trigger and the reaction. It happens in milliseconds. A look, a tone, a message read the wrong way. And before we even know it, we're saying something sharp, slamming a door, raising our voice, or going quiet in a way that cuts deeper than words ever could. This is where the practice begins. Breathe before you speak. Now, I know that sounds basic. I know it sounds like the kind of advice you see on an Instagram quote next to a picture of a sunset. But don't let the simplicity fool you. This is real, hard, embodied work. Because when you're angry, your nervous system is not interested in peace, It's not interested in wisdom. It's interested in survival. Anger activates your fight or flight response. Your heart rate spikes, your muscles tighten, your breath gets shallow, your brain becomes laser focused on threat and defense. You stop listening, you stop thinking clearly, your body is preparing to protect you. Even if the threat is just an argument over dishes. But here's the thing, you can't communicate from a place of protection and connection at the same time. So if what you want is to express yourself clearly, to be heard, to be understood, or even to disagree with strength and clarity, you have to help your body feel safe first. And the fastest way to do that, your breath. Your breath is your anchor. Your breath is the switch that helps move you from reactivity to regulation. It slows down the emotional surge. It invites your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that makes thoughtful decisions, back online. How do you do it? You pause, you put space between the stimulus and your response. And you take a breath, not just any breath, but a slow, conscious one. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts. Hold it for 4. Exhale through your mouth for 6. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your body. Get present. And in that breath, something powerful happens. You create choice. You don't have to speak just because the moment demands it. You don't have to respond just because the anger is loud. That breath buys you a moment of clarity. That moment might save a conversation. It might save a relationship. It might save you from saying something that isn't aligned with your truth. Breathing before you speak doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean you're avoiding conflict or bottling up your feelings. It means you're honoring them enough to deliver them with intention rather than destruction. And yes, this takes practice. It takes messing up, noticing it, and trying again. It means breathing even when your ego is screaming, even when silence feels like surrender, even when your old wiring is begging you to lash out. You breathe anyway. You breathe because you know something deeper. Reaction might feel powerful in the moment, but intention is powerful for the long haul. So next time anger hijacks your body, when your fists clench, your face flushes, and your mouth starts to form the sentence, pause, just one breath. Then ask yourself, is what I'm about to say in alignment with who I want to be? Will these words build a bridge or burn one down? And if you're not sure, breathe again, wait, let your body settle, let your heart come back to the conversation, then speak. Not from the heat of the moment, but from the strength of your values. Because you don't just want to be right, you want to be real, and you want to be heard. And that starts not with words, but with a breath. Anger has a way of turning our gaze outward. It makes us scan the room, the relationship, the moment for someone to hold responsible. You did this. You never listened. You always let me down. When we're hurt, it's tempting to reach for blame because blame is fast. Blame feels clean. It gives us the illusion of control. It says, I'm not the problem, they are. But here's the truth that's harder to sit with. Blame might feel powerful, but it rarely leads to real change because blame shuts people down. Blame puts up walls instead of creating bridges. Blame deflects rather than reflects. But boundaries are different. Boundaries are the quiet, clear, courageous alternative to blame. They don't accuse, they inform. They don't point fingers, they open hands. They say, here's what's okay for me and here's what's not. They invite accountability without shame. Setting a boundary means owning your experience instead of outsourcing your emotion. So instead of saying, you're so selfish for never checking in on me, you say, I feel disconnected when I don't hear from you and I need more regular communication to feel safe in this relationship. One blames, one builds. This shift takes courage. It takes clarity. And most of all, it takes emotional regulation because boundaries aren't meant to be thrown down in the middle of a storm. They come from that grounded place after we've done the work of naming our emotions, breathing through our reaction, and getting curious about what we actually need. Think of it this way. Anger often points to a violated boundary. Something that mattered to you wasn't honored, and your body knew it before your mind could name it. Maybe someone talked over you in a meeting and you felt invisible. Maybe your partner joked about something deeply personal in front of others and you felt exposed. Maybe your friend keeps canceling plans last minute and you feel unimportant. The anger is real, but the path forward isn't found in rage. It's found in the clarity of saying, that didn't work for me. I need something different going forward. Boundaries sound like, I'm not available for that kind of conversation. It's important to me to be spoken to with respect, even when we're upset. If this continues, I'll have to step away. These aren't ultimatums, they're invitations to healthier dynamics, to mutual respect, to deeper connection. But what stops many of us from setting boundaries? Fear. Fear of being seen as difficult, traumatic, selfish, fear of conflict, fear of abandonment. So instead of speaking our truth, we stay silent. We fume quietly. We hope the other person will read our mind, and when they don't, resentment builds. And eventually that resentment erupts, not as a boundary, but as blame. Here's what we need to remember. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors. They don't shut people out. They show people how to love us well. They don't punish, they protect. They're not about controlling others. They're about honoring ourselves. And yes, sometimes people won't like your boundaries. That's okay. You're not here to make everyone comfortable. You're here to live in alignment with your values, your worth, and your truth. And people who truly care about you, they might be surprised. They might even resist at first. But ultimately, they will rise to meet your clarity. So when anger shows up, ask yourself, is this a moment to set a boundary? What do I need right now to feel safe, respected, and heard? Can I speak that need clearly without blaming someone else for not already knowing it? Because here's the real magic. Boundaries are not just self-protection, they're self-respect. And when you lead with respect for yourself and others, your anger becomes a guide, not a weapon. Every time we get angry, there's a story playing in the background. We don't always notice it because it doesn't shout. It whispers, it weaves itself into our thoughts, our reactions, the way we interpret what's happening. And before we even realize it, we're not just reacting to what happened, we're reacting to what we made it mean. That's why this step is so powerful. Honor the story you're telling yourself. Not because that story is always true, but because it's always real to you. Let me explain. Let's say a friend cancels plans at the last minute. Again, the fact is they canceled. That the story you might be telling yourself is, I'm not a priority, or I always care more than other people do, or I must not be worth showing up for. That's where the pain lives. That's where the anger starts to brew, not in the cancellation, but in the story beneath it. And unless you pause to honor that story, to name it and hold it with compassion, you'll end up reacting to it as if it's absolute truth. This is where we lose ourselves. This is where small moments become big fights, where miscommunication becomes disconnection, where hurt becomes hostility. So here's the invitation: slow down and ask yourself, what's the story I'm telling myself right now? What am I making this mean about me? Is this coming from this moment or from something deeper, older, unresolved? And then honor that story, not by letting it take over, not by declaring it fact, but by holding it with tenderness, by saying, of course I feel this way. Of course this touched something raw. This story makes sense given what I've been through. This kind of honesty is not weakness, it's the foundation of emotional maturity. It's how you learn to respond, not from your wound, but from your wisdom. And here's the thing, everyone has a story. Everyone walks into conflict with old chapters that still ache. So when we honor our own stories, we're also more likely to offer grace to others. Maybe your partner's sharp words aren't about you, maybe they're about their own fear of failure. Maybe your coworker's coldness isn't personal, maybe it's about their fear of not being taken seriously. When we understand the power of our internal narrative, we start to get curious about theirs. This practice doesn't mean we excuse bad behavior. It means we stop confusing our interpretation with the truth. We become more self-awareness, more grounded, more emotionally agile. Here's a real vulnerable example. You send a message to someone you care about, they don't reply for hours, you feel it, the heat rising, the stomach drop, the sharp edge of anger. You tell yourself, they're ignoring me, they don't care, I always get left behind. That's your story. But instead of lashing out or shutting down, you pause, you breathe, and you name it. The story I'm telling myself is that I don't matter. That's brave, that's honest. And it opens the door to a deeper truth. Maybe you're not just upset about the silence, you're aching to feel seen, to feel important, to feel chosen. And when you can name that truth, you can communicate from it. You can say, hey, when I don't hear back for a while, I notice that I start telling myself a story that I'm not a priority. I know that might not be what's happening, but it's what I feel, and I just wanted to be honest about it. That kind of vulnerability, that changes everything. It creates connection instead of conflict. It builds bridges instead of blame. So the next time anger flares, before you speak, before you act, pause. Ask yourself, what's the story here? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it mine, or does it belong to a younger version of me who still needs healing? When you honor your story, you begin to reclaim the pen. You stop letting old wounds write your reactions. You choose presence over patterns, intention over impulse. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be honest. And honesty always starts within. In the heat of the moment, it feels like we have no choice. The anger shows up fast, uninvited, and unfiltered. Your heart pounds, your jaw tightens, your fists clench. Something is said or done, and your whole nervous system lights up like a warning flare. It feels like your only options are to fight, flee, or freeze. But there's another path, a quieter one, a more powerful one. And it begins with this: practice the pause. Then choose. The pause is everything. It's the sacred breath between stimulus and response. It's the moment that separates reactivity from responsibility. It's where your power lives, not in the loudness of your reaction, but in the stillness of your choice. Let's be honest, this is not easy because when we're angry, the urge to act is primal. Our bodies are wired to protect, defend, survive. But the pause teaches us that not every fight is worth our peace. Not every moment of anger deserves an instant reaction. Sometimes the most radical, courageous thing you can do is wait. Wait until the emotion softens. Wait until your breath returns. Wait until your values, not your impulses, have the mic. This is not about denying your anger. It's not about bottling it up or pretending to be calm when you're not. It's about creating a moment, a margin where you can check in with yourself and ask, what do I want to create with this moment? That pause is your invitation to come home to yourself, to ask, is this reaction aligned with who I want to be? Will this bring me closer to the connection I need or further away? What's the most respectful, authentic way I can honor my truth right now? Sometimes the choice will be to speak clearly and firmly. Sometimes the choice will be to walk away. Sometimes it will be to ask for a break or to express your feelings in a different tone or to take time to reflect. All of those are choices. And when you give yourself space, you stop being a prisoner to your emotion. You become its steward. You become someone who can feel anger without becoming anger. Let me be clear, this doesn't come naturally, especially if you've grown up in an environment where anger meant shouting, silence, or shame, especially if you've learned to believe that reacting fast equals strength. Practicing the pause takes unlearning, it takes intention, it takes compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. Because sometimes you won't pause, you'll yell, you'll snap, you'll say something that makes your stomach drop a few minutes later. And in those moments, the choice becomes, how do I repair? How do I come back with honesty and humility? How do I learn from this without drowning in shame? Practicing the pause is not about perfection, it's about presence. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Your pause muscles grow stronger, your self-awareness becomes sharper, and eventually anger becomes something you work with, not something that works against you. Because here's the truth, you always have a choice, even when it doesn't feel like it, especially when it doesn't feel like it. And the pause is what gives that choice back to you. So the next time your anger flares and your reaction rises to the surface, try this. Pause, breathe, ground, check in, and then choose. Choose not just what feels good in the moment, but what feels right in the long run. That's not weakness, that's not avoidance, that's self-leadership. That's power with integrity. That's the kind of strength the world needs more of. As we wrap up this journey together, remember that anger is not your enemy. It's a natural human emotion that's trying to tell you something important about your boundaries, your needs, and your values. The challenge is not in feeling angry, it's in how we choose to respond to it. When anger shows up, instead of reacting impulsively, we can name it to tame it, acknowledging its presence and understanding the deeper message beneath it. We can get curious, not furious, and approach ourselves and others with compassion, seeking the roots of the emotion instead of getting lost in the flames. We can breathe before we speak, giving ourselves space to center, think, and respond with intention rather than reaction. We can set boundaries, not blame, honoring our needs and protecting our well-being, while also choosing to lead with responsibility, not shame. We can honor the story we're telling ourselves, understanding the narratives that shape our emotions, and creating new, kinder stories that empower us to act with wisdom and clarity. And finally, we can practice the pause, then choose, because in that pause, we reclaim our power. We choose not just how to react, but how to respond with intention, alignment, and integrity. The pause gives us the ability to not just respond to the moment, but to craft the moment, to shape it with care, to ensure that our actions are true to the people we are becoming, not just the emotions we are feeling. This isn't easy, it's a practice. It's a lifelong journey, but each time you choose to pause, to breathe, to respond with clarity, you are building a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. Someone who can hold their anger with grace and transform it into something powerful. Anger, when channeled with awareness, can be a force for growth, understanding, and change. And in every moment of anger, you have the opportunity to choose the kind of energy you want to bring to the world. Whether that's a force that divides or one that connects, heals, and builds. So my invitation to you is this: next time anger rises, remember the pause. Honor your emotions. Get curious. Choose wisely, and in doing so, you'll not only navigate your anger, you'll transform it into a source of strength, compassion, and profound self-awareness. Thank you.